All right, you are live.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. Mayor, I will turn it over to you and share my screen.
Yes, I was muted, of course. So would like to welcome everybody to our Dix Park Leadership meeting this morning, calling the meeting to order. And I'd like to ask if there's anyone here for public comment.
So if there's anyone that's joined in, please raise your hand. All right, we have Doug Johnson. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Of course we have Mr. Johnson. Welcome.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I attended on Zoom the EDGE study last night, and for Raleigh and Fuller Heights across Lake Wheeler Road. Lots of impacts are expected, and there's a great cohort of people working on that. I only wanted to mention this morning before everyone got started that there are other edges to be considered, and I was hoping to begin a little bit of that discussion by means of email to each of the members of the leadership committee. I'm very encouraged by the work that I've seen done by those involved with the EDGE study there, and the scope that they're taking with it, and the understanding of other things that are going on that need to be given plenty of room as well as consideration, particularly in the discussions last night on downtown
Someone
South.
talking, because I can't hear anything.
Oh,
I can hear it.
I didn't hear a
Well,
word.
well,
Who's saying that?
let me say this, and perhaps someone, it's for those who aren't able to hear what I'm saying. I'll be sending some information that is of interest to me, and I hope will be of interest to you, about implementation of a synergistic EDGE study in which we look at all the neighbors and using the Fuller Heights Raleigh neighborhood as our pilot project, see how we can expand that into other areas around the park so that the park and its neighbors become greater than the sum of their parts, and proceed with a sort of I use the word synergistic, but comprehensive approach to considering the neighboring effects on the development of Dix Park. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
All right, is there anyone else that's joined in from the public that'd like to make a comment? Please choose the raise hand button. Does not look like there's anyone else.
All right. Next, I would like to ask for approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion? And reminder, I cannot see you on my screen when this is up. So, okay. Do I have a motion?
This is Jennifer. I move to approve the minutes.
This is
Thank you,
David. I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
From now on, I'm just going to say, is anyone opposed? We'll do it that way. Okay. Next, I'd like to welcome two new committee members. Really excited about this. Alicia Knight is the Associate Vice Chancellor for Real Estate and Development at North Carolina State. Alicia, would you like to offer any comments?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am Alicia Knight, as the mayor said. Pleased to be here. Pleased to join the leadership committee on behalf of the chancellor, and look forward to working with everyone in this group moving forward. So thank you all.
Thank you for being here. And second, Shauna Overdorf, who is the community committee chair. Shauna?
Good morning. I'm so happy to see so many of your faces.
As Mayor Baldwin said, I am joining as the chair for the community committee. This will be my second appointment in that capacity. Was proud to be able to serve on the master planning committee with MVAA and the city staff, Conservancy, and hundreds of our community constituents. I'm currently the community relations manager over at Slido, so you may see us on the campus because we're doing some work over there right now. So, but I'm just so excited to be here. So thanks for this time to say good morning.
Thank you. Next, we have project updates from the staff. But before we start, I just want to mention Nights of Lights. I'm so excited about this. And I really want to thank Jimmy Goodman, Jim's son, for really leading the way on this, along with the folks from Artsplosure, Michael Lauder, and also thank the City of Raleigh staff for making it happen. This is a huge effort, but what I'm excited about is it's going to expose the park to people who normally wouldn't come here. And we've talked about outreach and the need for outreach. So having that greater community outreach, bringing people here will bode well for all of us as we move forward with a bond referendum and other things that we have planned. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for making this happen. And Kate, I'm going to turn this over to you now for an update on that, as well as the other issues on our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I will share my screen and turn it over to Joey Vasca, who has been leading the effort on the city side for a project update on Nights of Lights.
Absolutely, Kate. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Just some updates around Nights for Lights. The mayor and I had the opportunity to be on site Saturday morning and share with the public and share the excitement around ticket sales going on. I just want to kind of give everyone an overview with that map right there, just to make sure we're all on the same page of what Nights of Lights is. So this is a really colorful, graphically represented map that WRAL put together that really gives the public an idea of what they're going to experience as they drive through Nights of Lights in December. And if you're driving through the park this week, you will start to see everything going up from all of the different light displays and everything in the trees. So just as an overview, folks enter on Western Boulevard at Hunt Drive right across from Central Prison. They go through a ticketing queue around the soccer field area where there's going to be a 25-foot large LED tree. Ticketing will occur in that area, and then they proceed on the 1.3-mile route down Hunt Drive, Umstead Drive, and basically around the perimeter of the big field, where you'll see all of the different lighting themes that are outlined on the map. So we're so excited, as the mayor mentioned, through partnerships with Artsplosure and other community partners. It's just going to be just a fun family holiday event that folks can just come out and enjoy in the park. So a few additional updates about the event. Like I mentioned, on Saturday, tickets went on sale. Kate, if you want to go to the next slide. Tickets went on sale Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. As of yesterday morning, we had sold over 23,000 vehicle tickets. The most popular nights of the event seem to be that first full weekend, which is the December 18th through December 20th. That weekend right before the Christmas weekend, folks are really excited about coming out to the events. Pretty much the majority of the time slots, those days on that weekend are full at this time. And we're starting to see more time slots fill since those time slots have filled as well. So tickets, especially before the Christmas weekend, are filling quickly. There's more availability after the weekend. If you go to the next slides, Kate, I want to just take a minute and really focus on the community outreach. One of our huge efforts through Nights of Lights has been to, as the mayor mentioned, to engage with the community, just to provide opportunities for so many different people to experience Nights of Lights. So we've been working through a model of providing complimentary tickets to different groups throughout the city. And we really targeted efforts around some different categories. We worked with our community center staff at areas that had a greater than 20% population of poverty. We're working through our Give Play program and some of those other aspects. To go into a little more detail on the community center side, you can see the community centers that we targeted, working with the staff at those sites to work with their communities to ensure we could extend Nights of Lights opportunities at those sites. And that's ongoing right now. Kate, if you want to go to the next slide, here's a list of all of the different nonprofit organizations that we are working with in the area to extend Nights of Lights opportunities to the public. So you can see that list is extensive. I've heard back from the vast majority of those organizations at this point, waiting to follow up with a few more to ensure that we can extend opportunities through our community, to our community through these organizations, like we've talked about, to ensure as many folks have the opportunity to attend the event as possible. Okay, you can move to the next slide. We're also, we had a huge demand from folks that wanted to bike the Lights and Nights event. We put a few time slots out there. Those have sold out very quickly. We're looking at potential opportunities to continue to serve that community, but there was a large interest of our bike community to bike through the event as well. And then finally, we're working with our minibus fleet in the department to secure drivers that can also work in some of those areas that we've identified to be able to allow families to ride in one of our vehicles. Maybe they don't have a car available and they can ride one of our departmental vehicles through the event as well. So really just wanted to stress and highlight the community outreach effort that we are using to really target in the community around Nights of Lights. Again, like I said, with one of our goals, providing as many opportunities as possible for people to experience this event. And I can pause right there for any questions related to Nights of Lights.
Joey, this is Carlton. I think you need to watch out that this doesn't become a political event. I noticed in the lower corner of your map there that you had a symbol for Duke University.
Durham Bulls.
Durham Bulls.
That was close.
Those symbols are represented there because there are different capital broadcasting companies that will be present at the event. So
I'm playing with you.
I know you are. So.
Kate, could you take down the presentation for a minute so I can see if anybody has questions? Any additional questions? Arch, is that you raising your hand or is that you blocking your screen?
You're muted, Arj.
Unmute. The story of our new lives.
Sign language.
I guess Arj is having a hard time unmuting. Do we have any other comments? I just want to say, Joey, I am so impressed with the work that you have done on outreach. Looking there, not only outreach to our African-American communities and but also the Latino, Hispanic communities, really, really important that we keep that top of mind. I love the fact that you're working with people who don't have public transportation to use van service and also included bikers. Our bike community is so excited about this. So great work from an outreach standpoint. If this sells out, is there a possibility of doing any additional dates?
I would see that being very challenging at this point. It would just the resources from the city side. I would especially comment on RPD. RPD has a big role in this event and we're asking a lot of them to cover. So I would say that if this sold out, maybe we take that as the opportunity for the first year to kind of say, hey, there's interest from this aspect, something maybe we look at expanding in future years. But from a resource standpoint, we would really have to evaluate that.
I'm unmuted now, so a couple of questions, Joy.
Yes, sir.
What is the capacity in terms of how many cars would you sell out? And number two, how long does it take to drive through the event?
Yeah, great questions. We've received that question from the community a lot as well. So through a lot of research with different drive-through light show organizers, we set a capacity at 500 cars in a 30-minute block. And we feel confident that we can accommodate that because all of the sales are being done online in advance. So really your ticketing experience is a scan of the ticket and we are moving you along. Unlike other light shows that, there's some sort of monetary transaction happening on the site, that's all happening beforehand. So it is literally pull up, have your ticket ready, and we're scanning you and moving along. We're anticipating what we learned kind of industry standard of people driving very slowly through the route, that it's going to take between 10 and 15 minutes, just depending on your pace, to drive through the 1.3 miles. We know, especially with some of the awesome art exposure displays that they're planning that are very Raleigh centric, that folks are going to want to slow down and look at those for a couple extra seconds. So it'll be one of those pieces that we'll really be observing through the first couple of nights, is how long does that take? But just in talking with other folks that have done this type of event for many years, we think between 10 and 15 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else with a question? Okay. Guess we can go on to the next item. Oh, hold on, I'm seeing something in the chat. Yes, Kate, let's open this back up. We have somebody who would like to make public comment, was late to the meeting, but we'll open it back up if everybody's okay with that.
All right, we have Ann Franklin. I'm gonna allow you to talk. Just unmute yourself, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning, Ann.
Mayor Baldwin, this was a thrill. The way our community has been resilient, and I love the arts, and so this is very, very exciting. It will lift a lot of spirits. Thanks for letting me in. Just one thing quickly. We have a legacy committee that is hard at work, and there are about 10 work groups, and frankly, there are a few things that we would like to bring to your attention. We think your attention can benefit some of the things we're working on. So my request is that you will put the Legacy Committee report and a little time for discussion on I would say your next agenda, but that is also the day of our next meeting. So I would say on your January meeting, if we could request 20 minutes for presentation and 10 for some back and forth questions, that would be very helpful to us. Lots of good things underway. We want to share them, but we also need your guidance on some.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Kate, could you get that on our agenda for January then? Thank you.
Can do.
Thank you so much. I'll stay tuned.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Ann. Okay, Kate, next we have wayfinding and historic signage.
Yes, so I will go back and share my screen. This is just a brief update. Lauren Weldeshofer on our team has been working with Conservancy staff on a wayfinding and signage project. The signage is being designed to be extremely flexible and responsive to kind of the use of the park and information as it comes available. It is being funded through the Dix Park Conservancy and largely funded by a grant from the Jandy Ammons Foundation. Here you can see just some mock-ups of the proposed signage. For those of you who, I think we're all pretty familiar with the park, but one of our biggest challenges is helping people navigate through the park because all of the roadway was built to serve a hospital function. So getting people to our event areas, getting people to buildings that, the future Greg Poole Jr. All-Faith Chapel, we're really trying to be mindful of helping people navigate and experience their way through the park. In addition, we are working on a set of historic signage and working with a number of community stakeholders and City of Raleigh Historic Resources staff to make sure that we have great language that helps explain the history of the park. So you will see a first round of signage go in this basically over probably the December, January time period. And then we'll install a next wave of signage in the spring. So lots of work here. This is a project that we've needed to do for a while and are grateful for donors to the Conservancy funding that, but exciting kind of early park improvement that you'll see go into the park itself. I now want to turn it over to Nick Smith, and Nick is going to give us an update on the chapel project and where we are with the creek. So he's going to do a quick update on both of those.
Thanks, Kate. Good morning, all. Honored to provide an update to the committee. I will try to be brief here. As a review, we kicked off this work in late 2019 with the city leasing the building to the Conservancy to manage the renovation project. The design began shortly thereafter. Construction began summer this year. In November, the City Council approved renaming of the building to the Greg Poole Jr. All Faiths Chapel to recognize Mr. Poole's contributions to not only this project, but the Dix Park project in its entirety. And we still expect the construction to be completed early next year. Although we're not able to host our series of welcome grand launch events, we are excited to bring the community to the space whenever it is safe to do so. I've dropped a couple images into this presentation in place of a tour, which we hope to schedule. We've heard some interest in doing so for this group. And we're excited to show the building off and the hard work off. This is just a reminder of the front of the chapel. It's really a charming mid-century architecture building, and it's in good shape. And the core purpose of this work, Kate, you can go to the next one, is to maintain the character of the building while we're updating the systems to accommodate the new uses. So this is the interior of the building, the existing conditions as it was found, minus the pews. And the work primarily to date has been improving and installing new systems for the building to add air condition. The building hasn't had AC. To bring the building up to code in terms of electrical and plumbing code. And also just create a really open and welcoming space. One of the main moves has been to add restrooms. There is a shortage of public restrooms for those of you who have been out to the park, so we're excited to add that as a feature. And this next image shows in detail how we're using some space underneath the balcony for both the addition of these restrooms and storage spaces. In the rear of the chapel, the rear office space is being upfitted to host office space for the city Dix Park team and also the Dix Park Conservancy staff team. These will be joint offices. And both teams are really excited to be co-located on site, and we're excited for this transition early next year. In terms of site work, this image shows some conduit being added and some electrical work to add public Wi-Fi and also staff and city Wi-Fi, and then some exterior updates and to some soffit to improve the exterior condition. You also get a small glimpse, if you can see in the middle of this image, of the view to downtown. One of the major moves is replacing a majority of the front elevation with clear glass. That's going to provide an excellent vista to downtown, and this is just a preview of that. And finally, this is an image of the chapel situated on the hill. It's on the ridge along with the hospital, main hospital building, and it sits as a beacon to the community, and we hope it will be, as the park's first community building, it will continue to be a beacon and serve in that way. So that's the chapel project. Oh, one more piece. The Conservancy has also commissioned a welcoming art piece in the narthex, which is the lobby area of this building. This is funded by the Conservancy, and Christopher Holt has been selected to install and create this work. He recently was on exhibit at NCMA for his work in Asheville called the Hayward Street Beatitude, which I encourage everyone to check out. It's a really fabulous piece of work. We're excited for his vision here. We're working closely with him on creating this piece that's both going to welcome the community into the building, but also serve as an introduction to some site legacy and site history. The installation of this work is going to coordinate with the opening of the chapel, so early 2021. The next major phase 1 project is the creek and landfill improvements work. This is an area of 85 acres along the western boulevard edge of the park. You can see the area that has not been shaded out. This is the area that encompasses both the creek, Rocky Branch, and also the landfill, which is about 65 acres in the larger kind of chunk of this area. The main scope of this first phase of work is twofold. The first is a site investigation on both the stream corridor, but also on the soil above the landfill. So the site investigation and assessment of these to inform some design feasibility providing some options for stream alignment, but also reuse of the landfill and what's actually possible in these areas. This work is being made possible by 4 grants that the city and the Conservancy have received in the past several months. The total grant amount is nearly $900,000, which is a significant chunk of money. And these grants come from the Department of Environmental Quality, the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, Department of Justice, and Duke Energy Fund. So the City and Conservancy both partnered to apply, and they both are recipients for grants here, and these will combine to support this work. And finally, a brief timeline. Staff hopes for an RFQ to be published by the end of the year with a consultant brought on in spring of next year. The project length is expected to be 18 months. The first phase of assessment investigation is 1 year, and the design feasibility work 6 months, with education, outreach, and grant management efforts ongoing throughout the project. So I will stop there. Kate, if we want to ask questions, or we can keep moving.
Sure. If anyone has any questions about the chapel project or the creek upcoming creek work, please let us know.
Kate, could we take down the, yep, see everybody. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask? Man, this is an easy crowd this morning. Thank you.
Great. So next I will turn it over to Grayson Mon for update and on the Plaza Play with MVVA.
Thanks, Kate. Well, I'm Grayson Mon, project manager for the Plaza and Play. We are moving along pretty nicely with the design for the Plaza and Play. We just received 50% schematic design from MVVA last week. We have had a round of focus groups in October, have one coming up in January. Also in January, we have or early next year, I should say, we will have our second public meeting. And I'm excited for y'all to see an update from them. We've fine-tuned some of the site extents and are continuing to further develop the design. So with that, I will turn it over to MVVA.
And that's me. Thank you, guys. This is going to be a quick update on the design. You got a lot of this actually in our kind of interim leadership meeting, but I'll try to round out some things and tell you what to look forward to also. So we're here in the middle of SD, like Grayson just said, and we're trying to get a handle on a cost check and doing that. So kind of preparing documents and working on the design and preparing presentations all at the same time. So we're busy. Next, please. Oh, wait, one thing, I'm sorry, on that schedule, go back. I would like to try, I think, to ask about maybe having another interim leadership meeting before Christmas, if possible. This is something I'm kind of springing on everybody right now, but as I will, and it might not be possible. I would like to look at that just so we're not all the way to January before you're seeing any kind of interim progress on the beyond where we are on the design that I'm going to show you today. So that's just something to keep in mind. And since we're all at home, you know, and just need to turn our computer on, that's usually not such a big problem anyway. So yes, this is our 50% design exercise. That's where we're at. And 50% permitting plan. Next, please. So as Grayson mentioned, we did look at you know, changing what was the old RFQ extents in terms of the project. As we explained in the interim meeting that we had, we've kind of looking at ways to include a connection to the Groves landscape as part of this, so this doesn't feel like an isolated island project on the edge of a larger landscape. So we've kind of reconfigured the outline of the project area as you can see here at 50%. And now to go into it. one of the things that's come up in the public process and is a very sensible concern is how are the different modes going to enter? And so we've looked at different modes of transportation and how they're going to enter, where people are going to walk in, where people are going to bike in, where people are going to drive in. And so we've been looking at different entry points for different modes so there's not conflict and get people getting run over by various types of vehicles. So that's what we've been looking at, and it's illustrated here. The overall layout of elements, which was frozen at 50% just to get a cost, but is actually evolving constantly, back on the drawing boards and in models and whatnot in the office. And so I'd like to just take you in a couple of different ways here. Next, please. If we're coming in from the street, bus walking in from Lake Wheeler, and what we're showing here is a projected expanded Lake Wheeler Road, just to kind of plan around that. I think I explained that all to you guys last time. So actually, that may or may not be in place when the park is actually open, but we're working around that. So we're anticipating. I won't use the phrase future proofing since that is such a ridiculous phrase that people love to use nowadays, but we are at least anticipating the expansion of the road. But coming in this way, there's an opportunity, next please, for recreating some wonderful native landscapes here that are sun-loving landscapes like prairies and wildflowers, thinking about how multi-use paths can be incorporated, looking at things that would be a kind of very bright, vibrant and response to the native landscape of North Carolina. Then another way that people will come, probably more people actually, is via cars or vehicles, and they could come in to an extension that or a new drive that we're going to be making, and it's across from Dell Adams entrance, and that would connect in and become a new entrance to the park site. And we're studying the alignment of that and its interaction with the trees and things like that, and that I'll have more to report on. And that parking, that parking that we're looking at there could be also possibly it will be a place for school drop off and bus pullover that could happen there. But also, it's possible that some of that pavement could be used for farmers market outpost or other kinds of festivals and things that could happen there. We could incorporate. We really are trying to balance the need of parking with the needs of the landscape here. So possibly rain gardens and other things integrated in between the parking bays to make it really not just a utilitarian space. We're even looking at whether some low-key picnic areas and things like that could be added to that space to just accommodate families that are coming to the park. And so that's ongoing, but we'll give you more details on that. This is the program we're looking at. Next, please. Both of those really come into this kind of nexus point, the Fountain Plaza that we talked about. And the idea of that is it's dropped down a little bit with great accessibility. You're not, it's kind of effortlessly dropped down, I would say, but lowered relative to the grade of Lake Wheeler Road to help separate it acoustically and visually from Lake Wheeler Road. So you kind of move through this prairie landscape and meadows, probably some rolling features in there, and hopefully maybe around some of those big existing trees, if we could figure out a way to save those beautiful trees that are along that road, along Lake Wheeler there. And then to this plaza that could be a nexus point where everything kind of comes together, and it's this great civic moment. It's kind of crazy that I'm showing this Bethesda Terrace. It's conceptually the kind of motivation, but it's not actually in any detail what we would be doing. So but the Bethesda Terrace in Central Park, one of the great features is you come in on the upper terrace and you look down on this civic space, and that's something we are absolutely loving about this, and we will incorporate into the design. We will not be making an historic 19th century terrace though, and we will show you all about that. Here's some of the themes that we're looking at incorporating are on the next slide. We want to look at using natural stone. We want to look at making a space that could be used as a passive space for presentations and informal kind of performances. We want to look at water as a way of creating a cooling effect and having something playful and something beautiful. And then just a big open space also with shaded edges is what we're looking at to just have people come together for all kinds of things. The big idea that we presented at the interim meeting was this idea of co-opting and connecting the Grove into this space so it doesn't feel like an isolated space. We're looking at how to do that by connecting and creating a smaller extension of the Grove lawn that we're calling an event lawn here. Big, and then that creates a kind of axial relationship or kind of beautiful kind of series of events. Let me just make a note here. If you were up at this entry terrace, which was here, you're overlooking the fountain terrace. You could look through here and hopefully catch glimpses of the Grove and then maybe even glimpses of the skyline beyond that from different places. So then the other destinations that are kind of keyed into the Fountain Plaza, which is our kind of, our nodal point in the middle. We have, of course, the Buffalo House. We're looking at developing a series of gardens around that could start to address various people's interests in terms of edible landscape, in terms of different scales of gardening, demonstration gardens, accessible spaces. Then inside the house could be we're looking at a series of things. It's a small house. We can't overburden it. We have too many ideas, but that's okay. It's always good to have too many ideas at the beginning. You know, food and drink, could that happen in there? Or could we have art classes or art installations, permanent or temporary? We have gardening activities. These actually all could work in there and not overburden it, but if it was done right. Then outside the house, we have this whole idea of a kind of residential scale garden, outdoor eating, pergolas and shade, really have some beautiful seasonal interest in terms of the planting and complexity that we could have there. So there's a lot of great opportunity of working with that piece of architecture and kind of making this interesting time capsule there. And also, I think I'll ask Adrian to talk about this kind of history garden idea that she has been working on, and she'll introduce that at the end. Another nodal point or another important kind of anchoring element here is the destination play, which you guys probably know the most about already. Our idea on that is to really to really shape the land in a beautiful way, kind of like it is shown in the upper right thing here, where we're not just starting with a flat place, but we'll probably shape it in a sculptural way in ways that are inspired by various natural landscapes in North Carolina. We heard a lot from the public about natural inspiration in terms of play landscape, and we're looking at ways of incorporating that. Another theme that's important is, just try to diversify. One of the issues with the playground is kids get to be too old for it, and can we make it more universally appealing to people of all ages? And then this kind of layering a lot of play into the space by using play towers and connected systems, things that we've shown you we've done on other projects that really kind of make it a super exciting landmark. Then as another nodal point here, another important anchoring element is the what we're calling the grilling grove. A big feedback item is interest in food and getting together in a casual way, people bringing their own food, being able to cook on site, and we're showing some ideas of that. Another thing we've been thinking about in that area is, can we incorporate some small yard scale sports and activities that kind of increase the social interaction between people that, maybe come together or meet each other there on the site? Can we incorporate some smaller other elements that people are interested in that we want to incorporate, like, for instance, rain gardens that could have bring in some little pockets of interesting exotic, not exotic, exotic in terms of like rarer in North Carolina landscapes, and also incorporate a lot of trees and shade, as well as umbrellas and importance of shade in terms of being able to enjoy yourself out in a Raleigh summer. And then over at 2 or 3 o'clock, again, is the connection out to the event lawn, out to the Grove, and then the idea of the swing terrace, this new way of kind of bringing this all ages play element out to address the Grove and give great views while using that. So that space could have, again, as it is used now, a great space for performance, theater, setting up different kinds of events there. We love this kind of great civic scale swing that our collaborators have made here. And you could see, you know, adults and children, everybody kind of swinging on this big arcing swing. So we'd like to look at doing something like that there. And then bringing the topography, that's a fancy term for the land forming, the shaping of the land, and bringing it up into the space here and connecting to that sledding space, and then you know, acknowledging and making connections to the views beyond to the downtown, which are quite good at that moment there, if you could see through the trees. And right here, I'd like to ask Adrienne, I think she's on, to just talk a little bit about this, what I'm calling a history garden, but she would have her own term for it, maybe.
I'm happy to share a little more.
Thank
Thanks very
you,
much,
Adrienne.
Matt. Good morning, everybody. Two short slides here at the end of our presentation, but a really, really important connection that needs to be made at the Plaza and Play project to the history of the site and the legacy of the people who have come before. So the ideas here, they come out of MVVA's conversations from members, conversations that we've had with the community committee, and also with focus groups, which are a subset of the community committee members, as well as some other folks who are passionate about these topics here at Plaza and Play. So here's a very specific idea about a location on the Plaza and Play site where history and reflection and discovery can take place. So we're just a little bit south of the Buffalo House, which is off in the upper right-hand corner of this image. And there's a garden space here with small kind of winding paths. And the numbers are an indication of some physical markers that the design team would like to propose be incorporated here. And those physical markers, we're thinking at this early stage of this idea would include content, potentially even the names of individuals, of folks whose lives have been really deeply impacted by living or growing up around the Dix Park property. So that would include, of course, both during the time when the property was a hospital. So the upper right-hand corner image of the two little girls in black and white, one of them is Mildred Simon, who's a woman who our historic preservation team has been speaking with, recording those discussions. She's later in life now, but has an incredible set of memories from growing up in the Buffalo House, or the House of Many Porches, it's also known as. She's one example of a person whose life is greatly impacted by the site. And likewise, we're looking into other folks, including Stuart Ellison, who's mentioned here on the page, who was a craftsman who was enslaved, lived through emancipation, and then became a state legislator. So his one life has an amazing connection, really vividly, to both the Dix Park property, previously as a hospital, and prior to that, a plantation. Let's see, can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. While the content has yet to be developed, I will say that the expectation is that the design team would work really closely with the city staff and the great group of volunteers and the community committee that have gathered already around the project to develop a process where the voice of local Raleigh people is really incorporated into how this historic content is gathered and how it is displayed. So we're looking at some examples here from our signage consultant, which show kind of subtle but really important information embedded at a ground level. And the idea would be for this part of the Plaza and Play site, it could be a place where, let's say, a group of school kids or a dedicated tour to history, to site history, it might begin here. And so it would be a great place to right immediately at the main entrance to the park to introduce the site history to those groups. At the same time, it could be a place, like I said, it's right near the main entrance. So it might be a place that people would just come across, you know, unfamiliar with the incredible, complex, and really important layers of history at Dix Park. They might come across it, and there would be enough content here for them to be introduced to the really, really important history of this site in Raleigh. So with that, I think that's it. Any questions or comments, we welcome those.
I've got some questions. That'll come as a big surprise. Matt, first, the play area. You've got the water features at the plaza in Tulsa. Going back to Tulsa, those water features were so spectacular. Is the plaza the primary water play area, or do you have additional water play features within the play area itself?
We do have additional. We're working on an interesting way of connecting the two together visually, and I think the Fountain Plaza will be one type, and then we will do something which I call Science Lab. You know, with a little bit more like you saw at the in Tulsa, where there's like interaction and pumps and hydrodynamics and Archimedes screws and mill races and things like that. We're going to incorporate that too. That's just too much fun and actually too much, you know, it's just too very engaging on many levels. So I think we're going to have both of those things. We're looking at how to do that. And for that reason, this you could, that is not possible in the plan that you see here, but we're kind of evolving that plan to be able to do that.
Thank you. A lot of the things we saw in Tulsa do not fall within the realm of what the city of Raleigh is used to permitting and inspecting. In fact, it's everything we saw in Tulsa. It does not fall within the realm of what the city of Raleigh is used to permitting and inspecting. Kate and Matt and maybe the mayor, is there some sort of a special team of city inspection people who are going to be able to deal with these exotic and wonderful but non-traditional construction forms?
Grayson, I don't know if you want to jump in here, but we have been working on that with our partners in construction management, and we think we've come up with some great solutions. So Grayson, I don't know if you want to provide some additional info there.
Sure. Like Kate said, we've had a conversation with construction management, also those that do building inspection. There's kind of an in-between area with play features that are custom and play features that are standard play features. And so we have been working behind the scenes on how we will approach this, getting this established now as a proactive way, so that once we are getting into construction and even prior to that permitting, it is clear who all is going to do what, so that that is the seamless process for opening.
Thank you. This is so new. Hopefully the city's process won't abridge MVVA's creative uses. Also, regarding the history component, Adrienne, is our legacy committee at all involved with that? And if they're not, you know, at some point they will be.
I missed if you directed that question to anyone specifically.
I mentioned either you or Kate.
Okay. Yes. So the Legacy Committee has been involved in our focus group meetings, and we continue working on this through various channels. Adrienne has also been talking with Ernie Dollar, who runs the City of Raleigh Museum. So we have a balance of hands in this, but also trying to make it an efficient and meaningful material without diluting it through too many hands.
Thank you.
I'll also take a second here to say that I think that the work we have done with the focus groups and having these more like stakeholder-like meetings where we're talking about the details and experiences to layer on to the design is really making this a rich design. And I'm really excited for how that has been moving the design forward.
Similarly, Shauna, I know you put it in the chat, but I don't know if you want to share anything about how the community committee kind of reacted to the material.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll have a more organized way to present it. I think we just met, Nick, Kate, and I met yesterday to talk about the energy. And I quite literally was quiet. And for those of you on this call that know me, know that does not happen very often, because the energy was just, it was almost like a ping pong table. Somebody would say something and it'd be volleyed back over, and then it just kept expanding. And so we had a lot of good conversation yesterday about really activating committees of the committees, so task force, whatever we're going to call them, to be really intentional to take the different things that are being shared with enthusiasm, determining if it fits right now or if it's something that we would put over here in another area, but not losing that energy or momentum around that. And so thanks, Kate, for giving me that second to expand upon that a little bit more. But I will tell you, from our youngest person at LO High School on up, swings were a huge thing. So our MVAA people can, I know you all remember that there was a lot of conversation about swings. So that is like a must in that area, I think, just from that little focus group within our committee.
Kate, this is Nancy. I have a question. Surprise about the buildings. Can you put the map back up that shows kind of the whole thing? And you had okay, so I know that on the buildings, the one right under the word Grilling Grove, you had talked about, incorporating that at a future date as sort of a accessory piece to the park. Have there been any more conversations about the next building over? I know that was sort of left blank on the map. So that's my first question. And then my second question is the third building, the one on the far left, where it says site extends. You have it coming through the building for that entry road. So does that mean that building is coming down? See how the red dotted line goes through the building?
Yeah, I'll let the design team talk about why that line on the very left goes over the building. Kate, do you want to talk about the first two buildings?
Sure. I think this is, where we're, going to need to talk with this group and others to think about the phasing of the building work. And so, I think Matt at the last meeting talked about how the brown building, which is the one right below Grilling Grove, could potentially serve as a park supportive building in the future. We haven't really talked about uses for those two other buildings. And so I think that's a discussion to have, whether or not.
Have we discussed taking them down? Have we discussed taking either of those two down? Is that a possibility?
What I remember is that they're on their historical designation, so that it's a little challenging. Is that right?
Is that right? I can't remember.
So they are contributing structures to the National Register Historic District. Okay. That being said, that designation doesn't mean you can't demolish them, but it does. There is a process there. So that would be a conversation we would want to
you have to advertise it and then wait a year. So it's not impossible, but I think we left that all blank on the master plan. It just seems like it's still, it's such a cutout of what we're doing. And I mean, I don't know if we've got so many buildings, and if those aren't buildings that we really had any plan for on the master plan, is it something that's more valuable as part of this space, or is it something that we really need to work to figure out what we're going to put in there?
Well,
I think we just,
so I think there's a few things that we have on our horizon. One of them is horizon within this project. And one of them is what will our park maintenance operation, where will they be housed of? So that is a very critical part to the success of the site. And so, there's been discussion of could the Brown building be, have a future role in this site. And I think the other thing I want to say is that keeping in mind that the leases for these buildings end in 2025, we are anticipating that this site will open in 2024. And so we will have access to those buildings. There's not going to be a huge gap in time from when we open this site, when we will have access to these buildings. And I think in general, just this idea of knowing that we are designing this site to function somewhat on its own for when it opens, but then as we get access to other areas within the park, we're also, as we're designing it now, we're also designing it for the future connectivity and function of expanding the rest of the site as it is developed into a park.
all right, it feels very much like a missed opportunity to not include that. And I don't know how many people are in there. I know we'll probably get it around 2024. Would the state consider it earlier if there's not that many people in there? Do they have space to move them? I know that's always a hard conversation to have, but it's just, anyway, I'm done.
Can I just say one thing? I wanted to say one thing to maybe make Nancy feel a little bit better. What we're going to do with those buildings is not known. I think a part of what happens with this place when we open it will help feed into what we should do with those buildings, whether, this should essentially expand around the Brown building and become more of this or whatever should happen here. Let me tell you, we cannot afford to put those buildings in this project now. So don't worry about it. We can't, we've already kind of like pushed the limits on the site extents. You saw we extended them because we thought, making sure we're not isolated from the Grove is a super important thing. We're taking on enough challenges. We got to move cars around in order to do that. You know how people are such possessive over their parking spaces. If anybody wants to focus on their energy on anything, help us figure that out and help us make the state happy in the interim. So we can do that. We're already we're biting off more than we were initially had on our plate already. The budget is the budget on this project. We have to stay on budget. So I wouldn't worry about that right now. We don't have the money to do the wrong thing with it.
Okay. Well, and I do realize we have a budget, and I love everything you've done, but we don't have to put the whole park in here.
No, we don't.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
Yeah. So.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate your continued concern about that. I really do.
All right. I'll stop.
No, you don't need to. I mean, I just want you to, not ruin your Christmas over it. That's all.
Kate, we're talking about the end of the state lease. Would now be a time for a really quick update about action or inaction on the part of the department's move?
Kate, can you take down the screen so we can see everybody? Thank you.
And the last I heard, and Tansy, you may have some additional information here, is the state still considering their locations to consolidate and relocate their population at Dix. I know they're still really looking at the Blue Ridge Road site as that potential relocation. They did receive money for planning and design work from the state in this year's budget. So those are all very good signals. Our folks at DHHS on the staff side are progressing with kind of the space design for their future site. But we know that the construction money is still yet to be secured, but they are moving in the right direction and are working with city staff on the potential for the site at Blue Ridge. So I know there have been some discussions with other city departments on how to create that development pathway for that site. Nancy, I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
And I think that's a really good summary. As she said, there's been a cross-departmental team that's been working with the design team. They're planning a phased development of their site on Blue Ridge as well. So I think there's similar discussions happening about what they'll do and when, and the funding path. A piece of that project is intended, they think, to be state focused, and then there's an element of the project that's likely to be some kind of public-private partnership with some kind of lease space. One of their complexities is they've got a mixed model of some federally supported functions that have some different needs than their state funded pieces, but certainly we're trying to continue to work to maximize alignment with the state's alignment with some of our development objectives and open space and greenway objectives on that site, and the communication has been real positive.
Thank you both.
And I think to Matt's earlier discussion with Mayor McFarland, we have a lot of work to do with DHHS to accomplish the goals of the expansion of the Grove into the Plaza Play site. And so working with MVBA and having those conversations with DHHS is kind of our initial focus because it does impact some of their road network and parking areas. And kind of that's kind of our first step to realize the vision of the Plaza Play. And we are, that is going to be a change for them. And so that's kind of what we're working on in the short term to make that as help them realize that we're not going to impact their operation. It's just going to be a different way for them to get to and around their buildings.
Well, Kate, I think there's also room for discussion and negotiations here. They are going to be on the site longer than they anticipated because of the difficulties they've had in securing funding. So I think that they would be more amenable to accommodate some of these requests, knowing that they are staying longer than their lease allows.
Really?
There's no way they're going to be off there.
They're going to be able to make that market rate rent?
Well, we do want to be good neighbors.
I'm just saying.
They're going to, I guess my point is they're going to need us and we're going to need them. So let the negotiations begin.
I think that's a good point. Yeah. I just want to point out there were a couple of things from the last meeting that this group brought up, specifically around parking and the construction manager at risk. I'll just give two updates. The construction manager at risk will be presented, I believe, to council at their December 1st meeting, and we can provide an update after that. And then MVVA has been working on a lot of parking diagrams to show visitorship and daily parking versus nights and weekends parking. And the city's reviewing those right now. We need to review those with our transportation team. But I think everyone will be pleasantly surprised at the capacity of existing parking for nights and weekends to serve the Plaza Play. So just as I didn't want y'all to think that work wasn't happening, it's just not ready for prime time today. So that will be shared in future meetings.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda really is discussion. Does anybody have anything they would like to bring up? Any questions, concerns? Why not? If you could raise your hands, or Jennifer Wagner?
I just have a brief kind of comment. I think that the design is looking great. Congrats. This is looking really exciting. One thing that I know that you're thinking about is, but I just want to say it, is to be sure that we're complementing the other parks in the system. So, you know, we have a little bit of a spray feature, spray splash pad at Moore Square. So let's do something different here, which I know you're thinking that. We have some really interesting interactive play features at Sassafras Playground at Laurel Hills. So again, let's just do something different and really complement that. That was kind of the main overarching comment. And then Adrian, I think the history garden idea is really exciting. Is that really meant to be just around the Buffalo House, or is that meant to be, I heard you say something about at the entry, so is that kind of scattered throughout the entire plaza play?
Well, for right now, the idea is that it's concentrated at that garden outside the Buffalo House. And that particular location just happens to be immediate. Basically, it's the first thing that you would come to as one left the sidewalk of Lake Wheeler Road. So in my presentation, I didn't mean to say that, or at this point, we don't have specific ideas for how historical themes might play out in other areas around the Plaza and Play, but we certainly don't preclude them. But it's more like we're excited about this one small idea, and there's a lot to invest there.
Yeah, I like the idea of it perhaps being scattered a little bit more around. There's a lot of history to share, so great. Thank you, great job.
Mayor, can I ask, is there any update with regards to the Lake Wheeler improvements, the roads?
I asked that question yesterday. Kate, we have some more internal discussions that need to be had, is my understanding. Is that correct?
And Tansy, that's something we can potentially follow up on after this discussion.
Yeah, there's not a designed project or there's not a funded project at this point. So it was not included in last transportation bond, and it's not in the city's current CIP. So there is some streetscape anticipatory work happening as part of the Dix Edge that could be supportive of future design work. But ultimately, large transportation projects like this, we've generally relied on transportation bonds to support. So the path forward would either be reallocating funding from the last transportation bond, which would mean deprogramming some other project planned elsewhere, or including it in a future bond. And at this point, we've not begun specific discussion with the council about the timing or content of a future transportation bond.
So Kate?
Oh, Jim, just one, we also have to be careful putting a transportation bond on at the same time we put a parks bond on. We don't want them competing. From a transportation side too, we also have some major equity issues that we're addressing in areas of, say, Southeast Raleigh that have not moved forward. We've got to be careful on that as well, ensuring that there's balance.
Yeah, and I think to complement the mayor's, there are always more needs than we've got capacity in terms of any of the bond issues that we do. And the next transportation bond will also need to have some transit supportive elements. I think everybody knows that we've got a big lift with 4 BRTs, so we'll need to do sidewalk connectivity, and then general purpose funding for travel lanes will have to be funded locally. So just more context, I think, to the mayor's points about difficult prioritization that the council will have to do at some point.
Nancy, can I ask a question? Could we include the money for the road improvements in the park bond as a part of the Dix Park project?
It's a great question, Mayor, and yes, to some degree. So those things that are, we need to work with the bond council about that in terms of how to depict that. And as you're aware, and others probably, there'll be some bond covenants, and any expenditures will have to be aligned with the purpose that's outlined in the bond. But if that was anticipated from the beginning, we could be careful in terms of how we would draft that into the purpose of the bond. The most straightforward is those things that would be code required improvements associated with the park. But if we wanted the extent of the improvement to go beyond the specific development of the park, we need to be really more purposeful about including language about that in the bond.
Okay, I know that Charlotte is looking at combining some transportation and housing bonds together. So as they do their transportation expansion, they can put affordable housing. And I know we usually separate everything out, but I know there's within the state, we're talking about doing some combination bond work like that. So.
Yeah, we
not to prolong that conversation. Oh, sorry, Mayor.
Yeah, I was just saying, we actually talked about combining bonds this time and legally could not do it. But I also saw Stephen Bentley kind of raise his hand, and I think he was indicating that based on the research we've done, part of it could be included. Was that?
Yeah.
I was watching your hand signals.
Yeah, Tansy covered it perfectly well. If it's associated with like the park entrances and sidewalks, like our park frontage, our finance staff said from a preliminary perspective, that would work. But again, we have to make sure the language is clear and work with our bond council on it. But we've tested the idea early on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Tansy.
Mayor. I would just want to caution that we don't spend or put too much in the bucket for Dix in a parks bond in the future, because there's a lot of need around the entire city for parks.
We're fully aware of that based on our polling data. Mr. Goodman, I know you wanted to speak. I'm sorry, your turn.
I'm sorry. That's okay. It seems to me the issue is with not how we get the money to actually do Lake Wheeler, but the fact that we need right now the planning money. You have a very long cycle on these things, and it's been suggested that if the city had decided to do this already, we're behind on the planning cycle. So as I understand it, we need $2 million to plan the project, not to build it, but to plan it. But in any event, whatever the money is that we need to plan it, we need to get to planning, right? I mean, we cannot open the play area without Lake Wheeler. We can't open this project without Lake Wheeler done. And I appreciate everybody's, all the competing everythings. But we've got to start planning Lake Wheeler in order to get it done. And how can we get that done is my question. Just get the planning done, and then we've got time to work on where we get the money to actually do it. Is that a reasonable question?
Jim, I think it's a question, but with a $28 million deficit right now, we'll have to really look at this. And what I'm going to do is, based on this discussion, ask Tansy to lead that discussion internally and then report back to us on what might be done.
Am I right about the planning cycle? When would we have to start planning?
It's an interesting question. So there is some benefit of doing design and engineering and having a project sort of shovel ready when funding becomes available. We also have caution about not designing things so far ahead of some potential to fund the actual construction, that conditions change, standards change, and that work is not done. So the last transportation bond, the city has approached that differently over time. The last transportation bond really funded projects soup to nuts, so included design, engineering, and construction, so that we were certain to not have designs sitting for long periods of time waiting for construction funding. It is a practical approach to just fund design and engineering without funding for construction. And in that report that we could prepare for the council and then that could be shared with you, we could certainly talk about the pros and cons of both approaches and get some estimate of what design and engineering might cost for the project.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Tansy. So that's something perhaps you can come back to us within 90 days and let us know what options exist and what the pros and cons are.
Yeah, I think that would be good. That will allow us to get a little further in the city's budget planning and often, just for context, that the council does some financial planning and prioritization at its retreat generally in February. So Mayor, we might want to consider thinking about the proximity of those two things.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have a question or comment? Carlton?
Carlton, you're muted.
You're muted.
That might be a good thing. Everybody has the same idea of where the goal line is, and I just am not living in the world that Tansy and you are, Mary Ann, and the transportation people about what's actually possible. But it seems like as reality check, if we don't start planning now, and there are lots of reasons that Tansy pointed out that might not be the right thing to do. If we don't start planning now, then the road will not be open by the time the park opens. And that may not be the end of the world. It may be a big nuisance. But I think that with these types of issues, it's easy to say, well, we need to look at this and well, we need to look at that. And we do. But I'd prefer at some point that we put the timeline out there and just say, if the city cannot start planning now under some circumstance, there will not be time to plan and build the road. And so then there's the question of, is there a plan B? Do we postpone the development of the park? Do we manage it as best we can? But there's not a way to have it any other way. And that may be completely necessary, but I think that's an accurate statement. And I'm uncomfortable with us continuing to talk about these various competing restraints without acknowledgement that while they're valid, they don't get us to the goal line and being able to get people to the play area when we open it up. No conversation or decision expected by that. It's just we're dancing around the point out of necessity.
I think we've had discussions about access, and Alicia, one thing that has come up is being able to access parking at NC State, how that might look, accessing parking at our downtown lots. And also just for this room, we're having some discussions with some entities, I'm not going to name names, about the potential for providing different means of transportation that I think are much more forward thinking than just thinking about people driving their cars here. So there could be some cool factor to that as well. So lots of discussion going on about this. And if Tansy, you could get back to us in that 90-day period, as you just outlined, we'll be looking at some priorities from a council standpoint and a budgeting standpoint. So the timing is actually very good on this. Thank you. Anyone else with comment, discussion, questions? Okay, I don't see anybody raising their hand. So with that, our next meeting is scheduled, Kate, for,
So we typically meet.
moved it.
Yeah, that's right. We typically meet the fourth Tuesday. That's the week of Christmas. So we have moved it up a week to the third Tuesday of December, which is, wait for it, December 15th at 9 a.m. And everyone should have already received the scheduler for that. But yeah, that's our next scheduled meeting.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see everyone then. Thank you for your time today. Welcome to our new members. And
Gobble, gobble.
happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Gobble, gobble.
Oh, gobble, gobble. And,
Gobble, gobble, gobble. Yeah.
and get your tickets for Nights of Lights, okay? And gobble, gobble,
Thanks.
Jim. Thank you.
Thanksgiving, everyone.